Good evening. Welcome to a new edition of Real World News TV. I'm your co-host Reginald Kearney, and with me I have my other co-host, Wake Up Girl, Chara Ann Tappin. How you doing, Chara?
Uh, Shara's not here. Please leave a message.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
battling insomnia, so bear with me
Mm,
today, guys. Um, Otherwise, I'm great.
okay. Okay. All right. Well, the President of the United States spoke today.
Give me 1 second. I have to lower the volume on the TV.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. Hubby left the room and left
Oh,
the
left the
volume
TV
on.
on. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Now, as I was saying, the President of the United States spoke today.
Hmm.
Mitch McConnell, as he led, his overwhelming vote against the Voting Rights Act. I think it was HR 1. You know, we talk about having a president of the United States, Joe Biden, but Mitch is the most powerful man in the country because he pushes back. And his guys, they ride the line. If he says don't do this, they don't do it. And they don't do it. So I don't know what to say. I just think Democrats are weak when it comes to doing what they need to do.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. We're so busy, we're so busy allowing the media to oversimplify and polarize politicians and their views that the Democrats who are strong-willed and have strong personalities are dismissed as too what do they call it, extreme progressives, and so they can't get their points through, and that's what we want. I was reading the news today, and I was reading about all of the states that, first of all, how the Republicans filibustered in the Senate with respect to the voting rights bill for the People Act, and how the Texas governor is calling a special session so that he can push through his anti-democratic, anti-voting legislation, and all of these states, and like let's just call a spade at this point. The Republican Party is not the party for democracy. It is
Mm-mm.
not the party of equality or democracy or justice. It's really devolved. I was never really a fan of the Republicans to begin with, although I found it easier to find some common ground somewhere, back in the 80s and early 90s with some of their positions. But now they are just all positively certifiable anti-American, anti-democratic, anti-constitutional. And to say otherwise, you almost can't even say that they are only pro-democratic for white people, because at the end of the day, what they're doing is going to negatively impact all Americans of all ethnic groups and religious groups across the board, and that people are allowing themselves to be snowed. It's just mind-boggling, and I wish that there was a hardcore media station not associated with the comedian, not the Bill Maher's, not the Stephen Colbert's, even though I love their shows, but a hardcore independent or democratic journalist who just laid it out there. I mean, Rachel Maddow does a pretty good job, but we need more voices like that,
Mm-hmm.
because this is just friggin' ridiculous.
But you need somebody that's gonna be fussing and cussing because Rachel can only do, but she can only go so far with what she says, okay?
Yeah.
Because of the stance of NBC, and she can't go overboard because she'll have herself in trouble. But the problem you have is, and I think the leadership of the Democratic Party stinks. Okay, it just stinks. You got, and I hate to say it, you got a bunch of guys that have been around Washington for umpteen years, and they continue to do things the old way. The Democratic Party has a couple of problems. They have Manchin and what's the good lady's name from Arizona? The Democrat from Arizona, Cinnabon, whatever the name is. And they have progressive Democrats working against them. They got liberal Democrats that can't stand the progressive Democrats. So you got a mess. But then when you look over at the Republican Party and what Mitch is doing, regardless of what the fractions are within the Republican Party, he always brings them together and says, look, this is what you're going to do.
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, they're united by their greed and their desire to stay in power. And not to say that there aren't Democrats who have those same qualities, but you know, I don't know. It's very disturbing to think about the Herculean task that we have before us in terms of cleaning up government and getting these people out. Like how in a country that calls itself the bastion of democracy, you can get somebody who votes against automatic voter registration for all citizens. What's the justification for that? And McConnell says, what did he say? His words were totally inappropriate and all Republicans would vote against it. What about that is inappropriate in a democratic country? That he has yet to answer.
Well, the problem is they're afraid that if they don't control the scenario, that Democrats will be the party in power. And eventually it's going to happen, okay? It might be some bumps along the way, you know, some losses along the way, but in 10 years, the Democrats probably will control everything, okay? And it won't be nothing that the Republicans can do about it. So it's all about a power grab, and that's all it is. They figure that the harder they make it to vote, the less likely blacks are going to go to the polls. Okay, simple as that. That we're going to be lazy about it and say, go out there and stand in line for about an hour and say, no, I can't do this, and leave and go home. And that's what they're looking for.
Which is surprising. I mean, and again, it just points out the significant cultural difference between African Americans of the 50s and 60s versus today. You know, we may have some hurdles to going to vote, but nothing like existed back then, and yet they still managed.
Yeah.
But you know, we have become complacent. We have become distracted by, you know, the sense of immediate gratification. I remember junior high school. I went to junior high school in the Lower East Side, not a private school, public school. And I remember watching people of color walk around with troop jackets. Remember those tacky, multicolored leather jackets? And the rumor at the time was that troop stood for total rule over oppressed people. But, you know, you saw people going out and buying these $300 jackets, those jackets, the bombers, the special sneakers. You know, we're convinced we need all of this shit, as opposed to being convinced to participate in a political program that will have a more immediate impact, hopefully, on improving your quality of life. You know, there are times when I get sucked in and I want to buy the latest widget or whatever, and I have to remind myself, I have 3 widgets at home. You don't need a blue one, you know, so what? You just make do with what you have. And that's some serious conditioning to try to get yourself out of, to focus what's on important, or to focus on what's important. And it's just depressing. Meanwhile, you have this ongoing, you know, fracas, you know, that they call the audit. And they want to take it now from Arizona to Georgia. They haven't found anything untoward yet, except you've got a Republican in Ohio who's now facing charges for voting twice in November for Trump. And he claimed that he did it as his father's dying wish, that he already had power of attorney and his father broke his arm, so he couldn't write. I broke my arm once. To fill in a dot, I could use my left hand. To sign my name, I could use my left hand. And just to talk about the disparity and justice, as we often do, he accepted a plea agreement. So as a result of that, he's getting a reduced charge of falsifying records and a sentence of 3 days in jail and possibly a $500 fine versus the 4th degree felony that would have been. and up to 6 months or more in jail and a $5,000 fine. So it's, when I was reading that article, I was thinking about that woman who used a friend's address to get her child into a better school, and she got 5 years in jail.
Mm-hmm.
This guy did something that directly negatively impacts our democracy and the integrity of our democracy. And because he did a mea culpa, he's going to get 6 days and a $500 fine when he's already probably making, $200,000 a year as an elected official, or give or take. It's just really disgusting. I'm just so done.
Well, like I said, they don't get the punishment that they deserve. But I just don't know anymore. Because like I said, I think the Democrats are, they're punking out. They are. They can't get nothing through, and then they really, I hope Manchin would see after today that the filibuster has, if not removed, the threshold has to be lowered on the filibuster as far as getting votes. Okay,
Yeah.
They've got to do that. But he won't do it. He's not going to come around because him and the senator from Arizona, they come from Republican states and they're trying to hold on to their seats. If people, political officials have to stop worrying about the next election, okay, and worry about the cycle they're in at this time, and allow whatever happens to happen, and they got to do that. But every politician is worried about the next election, how to keep their seat.
Absolutely. And again, it just talks about one of the most significant issues with our political system. Do your job. That will get you elected. You are hired to get certain things accomplished for your constituency and for the republic as a whole. And for you to spend, 3/4 of your time campaigning for your next election says to me, you're not focused on your job. You're focused on catchphrases that will get you elected. And it's so frustrating. Somebody will spend 4 years in office, whether it's the presidential executive level or the legislative branch, and they won't get anything done those first 4 years, more often than not, because they're too busy trying to work to guarantee their election for the next cycle. And that's when they try to keep their promises. That's got to change.
Well, one of the things they do, the Republicans do a good job of telling lies, of pushing out false narratives to the general public. Okay, now I'm looking at an article on CNN, and they were talking about undocumented immigrants in the vote. It talks about how Ted Cruz, the nut from Texas, that the bill would allow undocumented immigrants to vote. Okay, that they would just be able to come to the country, register to vote, and be able to vote. And that was not part of the Democrats' plan. It's a fact. It's not a fact. The Cruz claims are false. So what they do, they continue to put out false narratives that their base of unintelligent people seem to buy into. They hear the word undocumented, then they tie it to voting, and then they believe that undocumented immigrants are going to come to the country and vote Democrats into power.
Yeah, no, they like to stoke the fears of xenophobic people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really depressing thinking about how many, people, and unfortunately the election showed us it's a little more than a third of the country that desperately needs to believe this narrative and this boogeyman of the other. Meanwhile, the boogeyman is right smack in front of their face, and they don't see it.
McConnell, he's the boogeyman for the Republican Party. So let me ask you a question. Would you consider the Republican Party a racist party or a party of racism?
That's a very good question. I think right now, the way it exists, it's hard to distinguish between the two. I think that, historically speaking, after the whole Dixiecrats and the flip, it has become a party of racists. They promote, well, clearly we've seen in the last 8 years, they have no problem promoting xenophobia and racism and misogyny. They are, right now, they stand for the party of all that is worst about this country. So I just think that they need to just all go and start from scratch. I don't know if anybody is salvageable. And that was evidenced during the last election, during the vote on whether or not to have a commission to investigate the January 6th insurrection. That was evident during the investigation into Trump and his administration and what they did with the Ukrainians and the Russians, which was painfully obvious in the first 10 pages of the Mueller report. You didn't even need to read the rest of the Mueller report. There was enough right there. So their willingness to turn their back on justice, on truth, on facts, on science, just says to me that not even 10 of them had the hairy, sweaty balls enough to step to the plate and do what was right. It says to me that they all got to go.
Yeah. But the reason I say that, it is a party that harbors racism, okay? And it's probably a party that's racist, but I don't want to give them, the label, you label them probably some people in the party who aren't, okay? There are people, in both parties, there are some good people that do what they need to do, and there's some, some terrible people in each party. And there are some good Republicans out here. I know some Republicans out here that are good, but I think overall, the majority of the party now, after after January 6th, you can see it's a party that's very racist, okay? And it's a party that pushes the scenario of racism, okay? And they just do it. So I feel sorry for the people who are in the party as Republicans that don't, go along with the program, but they're in there. They're in there. So then you got to come to the Democrat side and figure out, who's suing the Democratic Party. Because there's a fight in the Democratic Party, but the Democratic Party is going to get bulldozed if they don't change some of their actions and way. Simple as that.
Yeah, and first of all, they like to position themselves as the moral high ground. They like to position themselves as the only true Christians in the world. They like to position themselves as the only ones who are fiscally responsible and conservative, if you will. And that's just not factual in any stretch of the imagination. I don't think any of those things by themselves are intrinsically racist. But as supremacists do, they'll take an ideology and spin it so that it's theirs. They own it. I just, what I had wanted, one thing that I will give the Trump administration credit for, and he could have only done this with the support of the Republicans, was that he went in there like a bull in a china shop. And Tony's making me laugh. He went in there like a bull in a china shop, signed 1 million executive orders, and just, flipped the script on so many things and got a lot of things done. Now, I don't agree with the things that he did, but he was able to do it. I know that Biden, produced this list of executive orders that he wanted to do, but then they got signed and he never heard anything about it. That aggression just doesn't seem to exist. That's why I want AOC to move up in the ranks in that squad. Again, I may not agree with everything they say, but they actually are intelligent. They have the courage of their convictions and they're fearless. And they don't lie to get their points across. And I have a lot of respect for that.
But the thing about it, you can have the courage to believe in what you believe, but can you get stuff done? Yeah. And that's the problem with AOC. you know, she has a lot of rhetoric with her, but will she get anything done? The answer is no, because there's still a lot of Democrats that are not ready to be labeled as hardcore progressives. Okay,
Why does it
so
have to be hardcore though? Like, who determines it's
her,
hardcore?
she is hardcore. Okay,
She's New
she,
York.
she's hardcore.
She is New York. I would not
And
call her hardcore.
she is, because some of the things that she embraces, the country is not ready for yet. Okay, we can't. You
But the
have to
same
understand.
argument was
You have
made
to understand. You have to understand economics to understand what you can do and what you can't do in this country. Okay, you can't take a European model of progressivism and socialism and make it the model of the United States, because we weren't built that way. Okay,
It's not that we can't. It's just that culturally we're not ready.
well, we can't economically. We can't. You got to
If we
remember.
stop giving billions and trillions of dollars to the military-industrial complex, we can.
No.
If we stop lining the pockets of elected officials, we
listen,
can.
You have to have the military apparatus. But listen, London, the UK has always had a socialist form of government that takes care of their people. That's how they started out. Okay, they didn't start out 2 years ago saying we're gonna give free medical assistance to all people. They've been doing this since World War II. Okay, that's something they started with. They started with. Here in this country, if you try to change a model to fit what your desires are, it could affect the economy. Okay.
Yeah, I just think that if we keep making excuses like that, and I'm not saying that they're illegitimate, but if we keep finding the roadblocks, we won't look for ways around them. Look at what Roosevelt did, right? We had all kinds of work programs. We had lots of social programs under the New Deal that worked, helped lift us out of depression. More people had jobs. And that was a brand spanking new philosophical approach that this country, many people here weren't ready for and didn't want. But we had it, we took advantage of it, and it worked. But I think that we're so busy talking about what we can't do. And it's no wonder we're so slow to develop. We are so far behind socially from some of our Western counterparts.
You mean your Eastern counterpart? Okay, but you still got to realize we only 255, 256 years old as a country, and these other countries have been doing this stuff. Like I said, the European model is a model that came into place after World War II. I mean, that's
so
how
when do
long
we start? When do we start? Do we wait till we're 500 years old?
I think we have started, but we're gonna have to do it in drips and drabs. Okay, that's the only way.
There's been no drip and drab for a number of years now, and I think we have to catch up.
No, we have. No, you can't say that. We have started out doing some things. Okay, when you look at, even though Obamacare isn't free, it's a start towards trying to get something that's going to benefit all America. Okay, you got to remember you're dealing with capitalism versus and that free market stuff. Okay. These insurance companies, they don't want to lose their money, okay? And going into a free society where everyone has health care, what's going to happen to your insurance companies, okay? What's going to happen to your doctors and pay and stuff like that. We're a nation that's built on $400,000 and $500,000 a year salaries for doctors, okay? And that's where the disconnect is. If you can figure out how to keep doctors, keep that interest in being in the medical field after you take away their big salaries, then you can probably get somewhere. And this country is always going to be a fight, for having, the right thing, Then too, you got to look at the abuses that are taking place even in social services. To deal with, how do you control people who, falsify records and stuff like that, things of that nature. So we've got a lot of work to do to even make a model even work for us. in the littlest of things. Okay, I mean,
Well,
the
if we were,
closest thing, let me just say this: the closest thing we had to being progressive as a European was the stimulus checks. Okay, and they fussed and fought about that.
yeah.
You know, they fussed and fought about that when Canada and some of the European countries just said, "Look, we give y'all straight up $2,000-3,000 a month, and that's it." And they didn't say how long it's going to be, but that's what they did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, looking at the big picture, that helped stabilize a lot of industries because people could afford to pay their bills. They could afford to pay their rent. This country does not care about its population, period,
They
full
don't.
stop.
Mm-mm.
So people say leave, and I'm like, no, I'm not ready to leave yet because I want to stay here and fix it, but I am getting awfully tired.
But what they
really
need to do, the first thing they need to do is take the minimum wage up to $15 an hour. Okay. And then
But
they
we
need to
have
put
that in New York, but it's still not
yeah,
enough to pay
but
for an apartment.
but when you look in Virginia, for the most part is still at $7.25 an hour. Okay. You gotta take a national wage up, to $15 an hour. Then you got to put the triggers in it that's gonna increase it every year. I think after you start doing that, that's the first thing you got to take care of. Then you can start moving towards more of a progressive government. Okay, but until you can't just throw free medical out there and you can't even pay the people to go to work. Okay, I was coming out somewhere last night. Oh yeah, I was coming out of the grocery store yesterday afternoon, and this young lady was talking to somebody else, and she said, "This $11.75 ain't worth it."
Now, the only comment that I would make to that young lady is, does the company pay for her insurance? Because in which case, her wage is more than $11.75 an hour.
No, because in the unionized grocery store and retail industry, in grocery stores, you still got to pay a portion of your insurance. Okay,
A
they
portion is
pay
still
some.
better than
Yeah,
100%.
but they don't pay enough of it. They need to give them free insurance, really, because you're paying union dues, but you still got to pay on a portion of your insurance. Okay, and that insurance is very expensive. The portion that they pay is very expensive. So you take out your union dues every week. You got to take your insurance out. That 11.75 is probably looking like $8 an hour, $9 an hour.
Oh, no, I hear you. When
You
I
know,
have discussions with people about salaries they want to offer somebody, I have to
mhm.
remind them, a family coverage for insurance for some companies can be 13 grand or more a year.
Yeah.
So if you're paying somebody $45,000 a year, subtract that plus
Hmm.
the cost for transportation to get to and from work. There's not enough to raise a
That's
family to
right.
pay for your rent. So
Hmm.
$15, unless you're dealing with one of those states where the cost of living is low. In New York City, I mean, we're glad that they raised it to 15, but it's not really enough to live on your own in New York at
Not in New York.
$15 an hour. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
So
So perhaps they should make it comparable to the cost of living in the state that they're in. In New York, that would have to be at least 25 an hour.
yeah. And then what you got to look at too, you talk about the military apparatus. We need that. I was reading an article today where China is dead set on becoming the world power, and they even came out and said that if the United States tries to tries to keep that nose in that business, they're gonna have to end up fighting with Russia and China, and they can't do that because they said they would collaborate together and come together as one unit. Okay, and to take on the United States, So, like I said, I think, one of the things that the Orange Head did with this, trying to go with America first, he just alienated so many countries, especially the poor countries, that now they're turning towards China and Russia.
Yeah.
And we need, um, we need to have in place a strong military to, put down any problems that might be caused by Russia and China. I mean, but It's inevitable. You know, I'm not. No, I'm not going to say that it's inevitable, but we're going to live. This world is these countries are putting this world in a spot where everybody's always going to be on guard, trying to figure out what's going to happen next. You know,
It's just, I don't know. It's just
the
depressing.
world is messed up. Okay,
The world is incredibly messed up. It's frustrating.
jacked up.
Eh,
But you can't do nothing. I was looking at the news and they were talking. The United States is pulling out of Afghanistan, and they showed Taliban and Afghanistan soldiers turning their guns into the Taliban. Because they scared, and eventually the Taliban gonna kill them. They say they're not, but as soon as the United States get out, you're gonna start seeing. But they already have done some mass executions. You're gonna see more. You see the Taliban driving out Humvees, which we gave to the Afghanistan army to use. Then the Taliban is riding around in them.
Yeah. The world is imploding. And I just hope that it can last long enough for me to pass before I see it get any worse. Because we're just watching the slow demise of civility and common sense.
Yeah.
So on a lighter note, you saw that Pelosi is going to start her own, committee on the, so she announced today that there's going to be a creation of an independent commission to probe the insurrection.
Yeah, I saw that. But will it get anywhere?
Well, there are already a couple of commissions that are already involved in this process. So
yeah,
you've got the multiple House committees investigating this, including Homeland Security and House Administration panels. I mean, honestly, I think that I'm glad there's more than one committee looking into this, because there's so many angles that man and his minions worked through. But again, it just goes back to speaking about how un-American this Republican Party is. That some of them are trying to whitewash history despite the videos of the insurrection. And now there's concern that there's going to be another similar event, because you've got Trump still mouthing off that he expects to be reinstated. And of course, the QAnon groups keep pushing the date further and further and further away. Every time they miss one deadline, there's some secret message in a dead dog somewhere that the date has now moved. So I think, what is it? Is it July the 4th? What's the date now?
It's August now. I don't know.
August now?
It's going to keep moving for the next 3 years until the next presidential inauguration, okay? They're doing that to keep their people engaged, okay? That's how they keep people engaged. But I was looking at the news yesterday, and the FBI really screwed up. Christopher Ware really screwed up, because the chatter was out there. One female FBI agent turned information over that the chatter was out there. There was so much chatter out there that the FBI did go visit a couple of people and ask them not to come to D.C. with the intentions of trying to overthrow the government. Okay, because they had overheard their conversations. Yesterday they said also that guys like the Oath Keepers and all the 3%ers and Proud Boys had bought guns to DC and stashed them in the hotel rooms. Okay, so they were looking to, they got one guy on Parler saying that they're coming for revolution.
Please, Parler and all of those social media websites were positively rife with comments about insurrection, about kidnapping elected officials, about killing people, including the vice president. You don't have to be an expert sleuth to find this stuff. It was all over the internet. So why they're sort of pussyfooting around this now, I don't get it. And there was an article earlier today that I read, which really disgusted me. One woman was charged in participating in the riot, and which she later referred to in a post as the best day ever, told a federal court that she's learned her lesson from reading books such as Just Mercy and watching the movie Schindler's List. So reading that book supposedly and watching the movie Schindler's List somehow opened her eyes to the insanity of participating in the insurrection. And if they buy this, I'm just going to be so disgusted. So she's going to plead guilty to one charge related to the riot, and her attorney said that in exchange, she'll get 3 years of probation and $500 in restitution and community services. Again, the disparity in justice is just very difficult to wrap my brain around.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy because I don't think that they would try this crap again because the Capitol Police and the National Guard and the other powers will be out prepared. I think they come to D.C. the next time and act foolish, it'll be a massacre, and then you pay the price. Okay.
My concern about that, though, because remember when supremacists showed up at the Missouri courthouse or one of the legislative offices, and it was in Michigan. Michigan. Fully armed, standing right next to elected officials, threatening, intimidating people. And I said back then, that's a trial run. And I was right. They because they're pushing the envelope to see how far they can go. Now they know. And now they know how much more they have to do to actually accomplish something. I know one thing, if I were in their shoes, I would coordinate everything word of mouth and not do it on social media anymore, because that's obviously a dead giveaway. I don't think these people are asleep. I don't think that they're biding their time. I think that they're planning their next move.
Well, I'll tell you something. I wouldn't want to be on the other side, working with them the next time around, because it's not going to be pretty.
Well, there were no ramifications so far for these people, so they've been arrested, but they got to go to Mexico.
You want to see a mini war, a revolution at the Capitol? Let them try it again. Next time it's not going to be any hesitation to take people down. You got to remember if you look at when that officer shot that woman breaking through the window, there was no hesitation on his part. Okay, I think one of the things that kept the death toll very low this time around, when you have that many people and the amount of police officers you have, once you go through your clip, if you don't have another clip, or if you can't take them all out, they're gonna take you out. Okay. So, but I think the next time they're gonna put themselves in a position where many people are gonna lose their lives. Okay, and that's just gonna be the fact. Now I see on the local level, I'm gonna see. I can see them always testing on the local level, the state level, because that's a smaller piece of the pie. But the same thing that happens on a national level can happen on a local level.
Look, man, we've got elected officials who opened the door and let them in. You've got elected officials who refuse to go through the metal detectors and must bring their weapon to the Capitol. It only takes 2 or 3 of those assholes to leave weapons in the building and have people go there on a tourism visit and then wreak havoc. It's just.
If I had been a police officer that day, I would have unloaded both of my clips on them. I'm being straight up, because they were a threat. They were a threat. And I think the biggest thing you had on January 6th was officers trying to make up their mind. Should I, or shouldn't I? If been me, it would be yes. There'd be no hesitation. And that's why I said the next time is not going to be like that, because you can't trust these people. You can't say, well, I can't kill my fellow Americans. If your fellow Americans are acting like fools, you got to do something to protect the people.
Well, I think the color of the people also had a large thing to do with it. Because look, police have no problem shooting their American citizens for a broken taillight. Okay? They have no problem shooting them with a wallet in their hand or a cell phone in their hand. So I think that there was a whole other thing at play there as well.
I don't think color gonna have it ain't gonna be no reason next time. Color ain't gonna play into it next time. They're gonna take it as a threat. They're gonna take it as a threat on America, on American democracy the next time. And
I hope that there isn't a next time.
You never know, like you said, but you take those Republicans They know that all of a sudden they saying no, it won't have nothing happen. They were just tourists. They know it happened, and they were scared. They almost pooped in their pants. They were scared. But they showed this one congressman. They showed this one congressman helping them barricade inside the chambers, and then he comes out and says, "Oh, they were just tourists in the walking through the building," and he was scared. He was pooping in his pants. He was so scared.
Mm-hmm.
So
speaking of justice, we know that Judge Cahill, Peter Cahill, in Hennepin County, is going to be sentencing Derek Chauvin on Friday, I believe. What are you anticipating?
30 to 40.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
His attorney actually had the audacity, there I found my words, Tony, to ask for probation.
Well, the thing about it, probation is easier than getting beat up every day by an inmate, okay? He's gonna have to live his life in isolation, okay? And he's scared of being there with those guys because they'll take him out in a minute. Which I think they'll put him in the general population and give him the big bubble and let Big Bubble make a girlfriend out for the next 30 or 40 years. That's what I think. I think 30 to 40 years is not enough. But
well,
30
I think the maximum is 30. Or no, more than 30. 40. Yeah, no more than 30. Yeah.
The maximum is 40. But even 30 years is almost a life sentence, okay? And he needs to serve it. I mean, and he's not finished yet, because he's still, he got to go up on the federal charges. So he's going to spend the rest of his life, hopefully. And he's, God forgive me, but he's going to die in prison. Really,
no chance of parole. I'll be happy with 20, 30 years as long as he has no opportunity for parole.
Yeah. So he did it. People asked him to stop doing it. He didn't want to do. He's going to be Mr. Big, Bold, and Bad. Then he needs to pay the consequences. Coming out asking for probation or no sentence at all, and all that kind of stuff. Man, they come and get that guy probation or no sentence at all. We're gonna burn America down. It's simple as that. Just the bottom line.
Well, given this man's history, the expectation is that he'll vote somewhere. He'll charge him somewhere in the middle. I think that they showed a history of some of his other verdicts, judgments over the last few years, and he does seem a little heavy-handed. So
yeah, but I think he might go to the maximum. You saw this play out on national TV, okay?
Yeah.
And this affected everyone. If you saw it, you were affected. And you can't. It's no way you can justify even a little bit not giving him close to the maximum amount. You just can't. You can't justify saying, "Well, I think 20 years that George Floyd's life is only worth 20 years." You can't justify that. Now, if there had been no cameras or nothing like that, and to see it play out, but it came back a guilty verdict, then yeah, they probably would give him less time. But this is something that played out on the world stage. You got to remember, this judge, after he makes his sentence, he's got to live with what he did, and the criticism goes along with it. Now, if he doesn't come hard and strong, he's got to live with the fact that he let a man almost go free over unjustifiable killing.
I don't see many judges losing sleep over that. Look, we saw the Rodney King thing happen in front of everybody. What was that, 1990, 1991? And we didn't get the verdict we expected then.
Yeah, but this is a different case. Okay, this doesn't even compare to Rodney's case. This case played out the death of a man on TV. The time death of this man on TV. You saw the life, get sucked out of him. That's why they have minimum sentences and they have maximum sentences. He needs to get the maximum sentence. He needs the 40 years.
Let's hope so. I'd like 40 years and a camera in his cell so that I could watch him suffer.
I don't even want to watch him suffer. Because if the thing about it, they could have prevented this if they had put him off police force years ago. He's had at least he's had at least 12 complaints, which equals up to almost 1 year, one complaint per year that he's been on the force.
And that's just the people who complained. What about all those who didn't?
Yeah. So they've got to give him what he deserves, and for the next 3 guys coming up, they need to have maximum sentences too.
Yeah.
Basically,
what's happening with the I forget her name, the female officer who shot the guy in his apartment?
Her case hasn't come up yet. She'll be coming up soon.
Is it Aubrey? I can't remember.
Yeah, she's going to get some time, you know. And her case, she should get maximum, but they're going to probably try to give her a break on what she did because she swept him down. She thought it was a taser in her hand, but she's
no, not the one who killed the boy in the car and thought it was a taser. The one who broke into her ex-boyfriend's apartment and shot him. And thought she was in her own apartment.
She's trying to get her sentence overthrown.
Yeah.
You know, she's trying to get probation, but they might well gave her probation. They only gave her 10 years. That's just like giving you probation. You know, so they got to, you know, it's just they look at us differently when they come to sentencing people for killing us. We get a different look.
Yeah.
You know?
Michael Campbell wrote she got 10, but I agree with Reggie. I think she's trying to overturn that.
Yeah, she's trying to get out of it completely because she swears up and down that she thought that was her apartment. That was an accident. You know. But I think it's more to it. I mean, I really think it's more to it, and we'll never know the true story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a cover-up somewhere. She went to that apartment for a reason. Okay, she knew him.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more to this story than we'll ever know.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
We'll never know. Only she knows. You know, she knows. And she thought her badge would allow her to get away with it. That's what the bottom line was.
It may yet. We'll see what happens with the next case.
I wonder what happened to the key she had to get in the apartment.
Yeah.
So would you stay at home with your doors just unlocked all the time for somebody to walk in there?
No.
Okay.
No. I get up and make sure it's locked, but I'm a woman. It's a little bit different. I think we tend to do that more than men.
Even a man, I wouldn't let sit in my apartment with my door unlocked, just leave it unlocked and be on the couch about halfway asleep eating ice cream, okay?
Mm-hmm.
In the dark with the TV on, okay? Come on now. There's something missing from that whole story. I've always said that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it may be missing on the public eye, but not necessarily in the court documents, so...
Yeah, she only got 10 years.
Yeah, I had seen photographs, Michael, of them together, and I have a vague recollection of reading that they had some kind of a dalliance a while back that did not end well, or just kind of petered out. So he wasn't a stranger to her. He knew her. They knew each other's circles. She had been around him and vice versa. It wasn't she was just in a strange person's apartment thinking it was her own and shot him. That's why we say there's something, rotten in Denmark here.
Yeah. Yeah, for her to think, get 10 years, and all she got was 10 years. Yeah.
Meanwhile, what's the governor in Texas trying to do? Pass anti-voter legislation and make changes to bail and... I forget what the other thing was. Something that would affect cases like this and people, getting off easy and time served or something. But again, our priorities as a country are just completely backwards.
I said the other day, something about I'll take him down to Galveston, put him in his wheelchair and just roll him off the daggone pier in Galveston. Okay. Good.
Yeah, but you see, I don't want a fast death for these people who are clearly evil. I don't wish suffering on many people, but like take Trump for example. While I would love for him to be in jail, I don't want to spend another nickel of my tax dollar maintaining his life. So instead of going to jail where he has a roof over his head and 3 meals, I'd rather him have to get an under low wage job where he has to live off of $500 a month and live like that until he dies. Figure out how to get the doctor's appointment.
He might live like that anyway.
Can't get your hydrochloroquine then, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You won't get his spray tan then, or his comb over.
Yeah, but accountability, and what Abbott is doing down in Texas, he's just destroying Texas. You know, right in front of people's eyes. You know, he vetoed a line item in the budget so the Democrats wouldn't get that pay, and that staff wouldn't get that pay because he said he's not going to pay anyone who doesn't want to do that job. You know, so I don't know. It's all about control.
Maybe one day we should dedicate our show to only good news.
Yeah, we can. But you know, Black people are the most important people in this country. Because if we weren't, they won't be trying to steal our vote. You know, they fear Black people, and that's just the bottom line of it. You know, like Roland Martin said, and kind of paraphrasing it, when Blacks are successful, that's when whites wake up and they try to, you know, take away that success. Mm-hmm. It's just like with Tulsa. When they saw Blacks being successful in Tulsa, and they saw that Blacks didn't need to come to their neighborhoods, to the grocery stores, or, you know, you get anything from them, that made them mad. Because they're saying, you know, these Blacks are too successful for us. We got to force them to start coming back to us. So what they do, they burnt it down.
Yeah, burnt and pillaged. I hope every one of those things they stole are haunted. But yeah, no, I long for a day when this country evolves and moves forward. I just don't know if we'll see it in our lifetime. What are you laughing at now?
I saw this one picture on Facebook somebody had posted, and I guess it was one of the young ladies integrating the high school, and this white lady was standing behind them just yelling and screaming. They said the reason they don't want to teach the history in the school, especially using pictures, because nobody wants to look at the picture and say, hey, look at grandma back there yelling and screaming at that girl, calling her all kinds of names. That's what it is. It's all the embarrassment that comes with the story coming out, how they act. And sometimes I sit back and wonder, I say, how many of these people who try to block the little girls from Little Rock and things of that nature, how many of those people are actually living there? Yeah. And if I knew that, I would out them just so they can get the embarrassment of acting like fools all their lives.
Sounds like an interesting project. Facial recognition on the old postcards and newspaper articles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because some of them a lot of them are probably dead now, but then some of them that were young enough to know about it are probably still living. You know, probably in the 80s and 90s. I wish I could out them for that ignorance. You know,
not just that, but anybody having a picnic under a burning, hanging body, if they're still alive, be held accountable for that. You are an accessory to murder. At the end of the day. Yeah. But you know, we shall see. It'll be interesting to see what happens after Friday, after the verdict is announced, assuming that it is on the Derek Chauvin case.
Yeah, you know, like I said, he's probably going to go somewhere between 25 and 35. But I hope it's at the top end. I hope he goes to the top end. It was just that kind of killing.
Yeah.
You know, and whatever happens to him in prison happens. I mean, you took a life, you got to pay the price. You know, like the attorney general for Minnesota says, this is not about, you know, trying to right the wrongs of the past. The wrongs that police officers have done. This is about taking care of a wrong that happened at this particular moment. Because you still gonna have issues out there. You know, if you saw on TV a couple of nights ago, the officer was kicking the guy on the ground. You know. Yeah,
I think in any instance where the police just lost their minds and are using excessive force, especially when somebody is clearly no longer a threat, instantly fired and lose your license to a gun, lose your ability to work as a police officer and security across the nation. You should not be allowed to simply move to another municipality. You've clearly demonstrated that you do not have the mental fortitude or psychological intelligence to do that job. Full stop. Done. So, but on that, I just want to say one little thing, a light news article. A boat captain today who does snorkeling around sunken ships found a 95-year-old message in a bottle and found the daughter of the man who wrote that letter and reunited it with her. I thought that was a nice story.
Yes.
So we might have to work a little hard at it, but I think one of these days we could have a show where we're only talking about uplifting good news.
Okay.
I need a dose of that because I'm getting to.
That would take a lot. That would take a lot of research, and Tony just ain't got nothing. And Tony just doesn't have anything to do like that.
Well, it's real world news, so we can look beyond our own borders for the good news. So that broadens it a little bit. But I think we're going to end the show just a couple of minutes early tonight. I know that you should stay tuned for tomorrow's HTTR show. The topic is going to be a surprise, so you'll have to stay tuned to find out. It's 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central, and 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tony, do you want to join us and say goodnight? She said, nah, we're on our own. Oh my gosh, you're beautiful without makeup. All right then, Reggie, final thoughts?
Hey, got a lot of work we got to do, a lot of work.
And just remind everybody to pay attention to the 2022 elections and get it done. It's very important.
That's it.
All right, so good night, everyone. See you next week.
Okay, take care.
Bye.